So Dan, thanks so much for taking the time to join me today to have a chat. It's great to have you.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me. It's great to be here.
Well, hey, let's jump in straight away. I've been reading your own website for quite some time, and it's very clear as I read that you're passionate about helping people find meaning. I'm sure that's really because you've seen what that does close up to people. So could you perhaps give some examples of what kind of transformation happens when people actually wrestle with what can be pretty difficult questions?
Yeah. I think that's a great question. I think where I would want to start is by talking about why people wrestle with those questions because they are so difficult. I think that questions of purpose, whether you talk about it as meaning or calling or vocation or finding your life's work, they're really easy questions for us to avoid because they are too personal. They're too close to home, too close to our hearts. There's so much desire wrapped up in them that we often don't start really asking those questions or pushing into those questions until we have to, until something in our life happens that leaves us at a place where we have to ask those questions. Those things can be any kind of way that life just takes us in a direction that we didn't expect. Sometimes it's through a divorce. Sometimes it's through a loss of a job. Sometimes it's through some sort of health crisis. Sometimes it's through a death of a family member or just something really tragic that happens close to you. Sometimes it's just through the slow just wear of doing something every day that you just don't believe in, and you're left at this place where for whatever reason you have this new awareness of the fact that your life is really vulnerable and precious, and that it's in some ways can just so quickly and easily slip through your fingers. Yeah. And so then we start asking these questions. So like, what am I going to do that really matters? I don't want to spend any more time doing something that I don't fully believe in, that doesn't feel in alignment with who I am. And I think that's the kind of transformation that takes place, that it goes from you just have a job that you do because you need a paycheck to you have a job that you do because you believe in it, because it's close, in a close alignment with who you are, and I think with who you are made to be. So I think that's how I would start to answer that question.
Yeah, that's really helpful. Can I push you a bit on that one?
Yeah.
There are plenty of jobs out there which kind of need doing, which probably aren't going to necessarily resonate at the deepest level with somebody, right? So I guess at some stage somebody's going to be emptying your bin, and probably that's not their life's most profound desire. So how do you kind of cope with that reality that there are also some things that have to be done, and
I think that's a fantastic question, and I think there's two pieces to it that I would respond with. One is that to have the choice to be able to say, I don't want to do this and I want to do this with my life instead, with my time, is a privilege. And so privilege is a part of this conversation. And that's really important to acknowledge, I think, especially as a white man, that I know I have a lot of privilege. But I think also then that can also be an excuse for people to not engage in the conversation because they say it's only a privileged conversation. And so the second piece that I would say is that we need to make sure that we don't make assumptions about what someone else finds meaningful. Recently, I think it was Barry Schwartz did a TED Talk about purpose and what gives someone's work like meaning and purpose. I try to remember. He just wrote a book. I think he just wrote a book called Why We Work. I'm hoping I don't have his name wrong. It's somebody else. But he did a TED Talk, and he was talking about that very question of what makes work purpose, what makes work meaningful for people at all levels of an organization, from the person who's started the organization, maybe the CEO and all the upper level management, down to the janitors. And he told the story about this janitor at a hospital, and they had that conversation with him, like, do you find your work meaningful? And he said that he does. And they asked him for a story, and he told the story about cleaning a a patient's room, and this patient was in a coma, and he came in and cleaned the room, mopped the floor, and then right as he was on his way out, the person's family came in, and they asked him to mop the floor. And so then he mopped the floor again, even though he had already done it. And in some small way for him, that was like his way of taking care of that family, of giving them something, like even when they're at this really, really hard moment when their family member is in a coma. And he said the moments like that are what make his job worth doing. And so I think we have to be really careful not to take away someone's sense of purpose or assume that the work that they're doing isn't purposeful. And I think that's also something that's really important. That's related, is that purpose is such a subjective experience that what is meaningful for one person might not be meaningful for another. Yes. And so from the outside, we can't necessarily assume that someone else's experience is, meaningful or not meaningful. So that's how I would, respond to that. I think it's a great question. It's an important question.
Yeah, thanks. So how about yourself, Dan? What did the journey towards purpose look like for you? Yeah,
I started asking questions about what I wanted to do with my life when I was 16. And I think, really, as kids, we're always, people are always asking what do you want to be when you grow up, and those kind of things. But I was really forced to really wrestle with it, because I started college early. My family, that's just kind of how we did things. And I'm the youngest of two. My brother knew from the time he was 12 that he wanted to program computers. And so he graduated early and finished college early and got his master's early. And he's been working with a company for a long time, and has been doing really well, and just loves technology and what he gets to do with it. I didn't have a clear path. And so when I turned 16 and finished high school and started in college, I had no idea what I was doing. And usually people have a couple more years to kind of think about that before they get to college. And so I just really struggled for a long time to find my way. Through college, I had some things that I really liked, but I just didn't feel like I really knew what I wanted to do. And then post-college, started in a job that I thought was the right fit for me, but turned out to be just really, really painful and difficult. And so I was just in this place where I just, my early 20s at this point, feeling like just really lost, feeling really stuck, and feeling like I have no place to turn. Began talking with anyone and everyone who would give me pause about what should I do. And a couple mentors in particular started observing and mirroring back to me that I just get really excited about these questions of identity and purpose. At that time, I was working with high schoolers, and a lot of my conversations with them that I just really loved having all circled around identity and purpose, and what are they going to do with their lives? What are they going to do when what are they going to study in college, and what are their dreams, and those kind of things. And so I just started kind of piecing these things together, that there's something in this question of purpose that is really exciting for me. I didn't know at that point if it was just because I needed to figure out what to do with my life or not, right. But decided to just let that question be enough to guide me for a little while. And so I went to grad school to try to find ways to help people answer these kind of questions. And post-grad school, decided that the best way for me, there's a lot of different ways that you can help people find a sense of meaning, sense of purpose. But the way that felt like the best fit for me was for me to start my own thing, start seeing clients, and start the meaning movement, which is a big part of my work now. So that's kind of how I found my way into it. It's not necessarily a very direct path, but it's a good path.
Yeah, that's great. And certainly, I think the meaning movement, your site, your website, and your work there is really great. It shows you've thought about this for a long, long time, and been definitely marinated in that topic.
I appreciate that.
One of the things I've noticed in reading your site is that you come over pretty critical of a lot of the blog posts you can find out there that promise 3 steps to find your calling, draw your Venn diagram of whatever it is, the market and your skills
Yeah.
and your passions. And you can figure this out in 10 minutes.
Yep.
And I think you're right. If it was that easy, everyone would have done it already.
Yes.
But do those kind of exercises help at all?
Yeah. I love that. And it's kind of like the soapbox I often get on because I get so frustrated because there's so much content on the internet that just says, answer these 3 questions and you'll have it figured out, or here's how to find your purpose in 10 minutes. Those kind of questions are helpful if you already have a strong sense of where you're going. And it's a good way to revisit the things that you already know. And maybe you've already wrestled with these questions and you have a pretty strong sense of what your work is, but you haven't thought about it in a long time. Then you read an article like that, and it can be a good place to be like, okay, yeah, these answers, like I can fill out this Venn diagram, and that works for me, or I can answer those 5 questions. But for people who are truly lost and just really feel stuck, I think in some ways it's kind of insulting because if it was that easy, like you said, we would have already figured it out by now. If it was as easy as a 5-minute exercise, then we wouldn't be stuck for years or, however long, with this tension of like, what do I do with my life? What do I do next? What's a good fit for me? So I do think they help, but only in the retrospective way.
Right.
Yeah.
So what would those steps be that you would recommend people should do if they want to start to explore their sense of purpose?
Yeah, I think that you should always start with your story and understanding your narrative. What has made you who you are? And I think the major categories to think in is like what is goodness at its best for you, which is a very contextual question because again, that's going to be very subjective based on someone's in particular experience. So for you and your story, what's made you who you are, what is life at its best, and then also like what is the pain and the difficulty that you've been through. And those two questions, both goodness and pain, and what you know of those, can begin to be a framework to think about what do you love and what do you hate, for lack of a better word. And often our work is somehow related to those questions of creating more of that goodness or healing or preventing or stopping whatever that pain is. And then the next question is to look at your stories where you felt really engaged in what you were doing. And what was it that you were actually doing in those moments? So whether it be in work, and you do a survey of your years of work and talk about like what are the best projects that you've been a part of and why were those projects so good? What were the roles that you were in and why were those roles so good? And as you begin to like put all of these things on the table, and you have to look at all of them, then you start looking for themes that connect throughout them. Because maybe it's not the work itself, but it's how you're going about doing that work. Maybe it's that you're working with a team, certain kind of people. Maybe it's that you're solving a particular kind of problem for an organization. Whatever it might be. But as you look through your stories, through your narrative, understand how you've become who you are, what makes you feel alive, when are the places that you feel most connected to the work that you do, then these themes start to emerge. And then those themes then can guide you into the question of what do you do next? How can you step into a role that allows you to do more of those themes, to play with them more intentionally?
Yeah, that's really helpful. So really start with your own stories, right, and go back and mine that history.
Yeah. And I think just practically some ways to do that is I think writing is a great way of just writing out stories. I think working with a coach or with even a therapist.
If people want to learn more, how can they connect with you and with your material?
Yeah, I'd love for people to hop over to themeaningmovement.com. That's my website. And I have a mini course that I would love to offer to anyone who's listening. It's called 5 Clues to Your Calling. It's just a 5-part course just to help you start that process of telling your stories and understanding what makes you come alive.
Again, commend those resources to you because I'm a subscriber. I love the stuff that Dan puts out. So highly recommended.
I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Well, hey Dan, thanks so much for taking the time, and look forward to connecting sometime in the future.
Sounds great. Love it.
Bye now.
Take care.